Welcome to the show. Glad to have you with us here today. The sun is shining outside. Vince D'Addario has been all over the state of Indiana today. So here we are. I don't know what we're going to have today. We've had some technology issues with our live video stream, but it looks like we're here. We're streaming on at least on the Irish Breakdown channel. I see a few people in the show right now. I know Brian Driscoll had trouble earlier, he said, trying to get a show started or, even like set up. So he kind of booted his show earlier today, but we are here. I see, at least something in the chat. I don't know exactly what's going on. Usually what happens is if Vince or I, the moderators, if we post something in the YouTube chat, it shows up as both the Irish Breakdown and Sports Radio WSBT. Vince just posted something. I don't see the Sports Radio WSBT, so that's
it. I've tried to post multiple things, and it keeps saying that YouTube has rejected my comment, and that means they think it's spam. So
interesting.
That's all I've got on my end is a bunch of red. So I'm not able to post anything, apparently.
Very interesting. Well, this is a mailbag show, so that's not good news. The good news is we do have some mailbag questions that have been submitted in the Irish Breakdown Champions Lounge. We got some late submissions for that. People, Vince, are fired up about Notre Dame men's basketball now, and not in a good way. So
yeah, I mean, obviously I was not able to watch the game. I was offered tickets, but I was out of town, thankfully. So I did not have to watch that particular bloodbath in person. But anybody who thought that game was going to go in any other direction was delusional. I don't know how else to say it.
I don't know that anybody was predicting a 44-point loss, but at the same time, you're talking about Duke, the number one team in the nation, just beat third-ranked Michigan last weekend, and Notre Dame, who is sitting below the cut line right now to even make the ACC tournament. So, would you have been less mad if it was a 30-point loss, a 25-point loss? Where's your barometer on your outrage? You knew this team was bad. You knew that Duke is really good. What were you expecting?
That's my point. And Notre Dame was missing its best two players, obviously, as well, with Harrelson and Marcus Burton being on the shelf.
Even that, honestly, at this point, I'm tired of hearing that. And this is not directed at you, but
Harrelson's only been out for 10 days.
Right. But how much closer was that going to make it? 10 points?
It wouldn't have been the worst home loss in history of Notre Dame basketball, which is what everybody seems to lead with. That's all I'm saying. So again, they still would have gotten their butts blown away.
Directed at you. I'm just it's the same thing over and over again. I guess it's because this is such a far gone season. It is long gone.
Yeah.
And the fact that your two best players aren't playing right now, you've been without your best player for what is it, 3 months at this point, going on
the entire
3 months,
ACC basically. Tournament or the entire ACC season, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. And Stymie is apparently some people are able to make some comments in the chat. He says Tom Noy's article today was savage and absolutely on point. And it is more than an article. It is a column. It is honestly a work of art. And I shared it with Vince and Jesse.
Work of art
this afternoon. I think that it hits the high notes, man. And if you want, should we just get into this?
We might as well, because yes, we might as well, because I have got some thoughts on the entire situation and the article in question. It was a good read, by the way. And I love the fact that Tom's not afraid to ruffle feathers. He's not afraid to speak his mind on the situation. And
for what a good columnist does, right?
Absolutely. 100%.
Stir it up. Don't forget, he's more than just, he has dual roles over there. He is the South Bend Tribune's lead sports columnist, as well as the beat writer for Notre Dame men's basketball. So I realize in today's media world, maybe those lines are so blurred that no one even knows what the, actual distinction between those two, but old school media, the columnist was the guy who had the opinion.
Right.
like David Haw, when he was still at the South Bend Tribune, Chicago, he's been at the Chicago Tribune and in other Chicago media now for a couple decades at this point. But when I first got here 25 years ago, David Haw, Tribune, he was the columnist. And so it was his job to be the guy for the sports department who had the actual opinion, and the reporters for the different beats were just supposed to more or less kind of report the facts. Now, again, the lines have blurred so much because everyone's got a podcast,
right,
or radio show, or, in some cases TV and whatever. And obviously you have video out there. Everyone's got an opinion now. So like the purebred sports columnist has kind of gone by the wayside. We don't even sort of, again, really understand what that is anymore. But at the same time, I guess, the bigger point is Tom has an opinion. Tom has been covering this team for decades now, probably 3 decades or something like that. And he's been around. He's seen a lot of Notre Dame men's basketball. He knows the ins and outs of how Notre Dame men's basketball operates over there. And he came out with some very strong opinions in the piece that he wrote today for the South Bend Tribune. We had a show yesterday where I let you talk here. And, we asked him some questions about Shrewsbury and the future and different things like that, Jesse and I feel like in retrospect, thinking back to some of the answers that Tom gave, he had some good responses, but at the same time, feel like he was probably holding back a little bit, knowing that this piece was going to be coming after last night's game.
Yeah, I do want to give Tom a lot of credit because he is also a beat writer as well. You know what I mean? Like he's on the beat, so to speak. He's the local guy. And there's a lot of local guys that are afraid to speak their mind about, and take a stand that might come across as negative when it comes to Notre Dame.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
I give him a ton of credit for doing that. And for better or for worse, and I think for better, he takes it personally because he's been so close to the program and been covering them for so long. Like he takes their struggles personally. I dig that. I like to have a little bit of passion involved in writing and covering a team and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that Tom is a fan of the team, but he's passionate about it and it's personal. And I'm okay with that.
About basketball. He's deep in basketball. Like,
absolutely.
Tom could, if like Notre Dame is a football school, obviously. And I think that's part of, a big part of what Tom is writing in this column. Notre Dame is definitely a football school. Tom is a basketball guy to his core. And, let's be honest, probably should have just gone and covered a basketball school at some point. And he might be a little bit,
might
he's
be
happy
happier
with what he's doing. But, at the same time, like some of the things that he's talking about is basically Notre Dame men's basketball is taking a back seat to football. And now there's a lot of people who say it should have, like you can say that it's, there's a lot of people, Notre Dame football fans specifically, who said, well, it should have taken a back seat a long time ago. And I think that, and we're going to get to some of the specific points that Tom made, but I think there's a lot of people who would just say, look, football is supposed to be the priority. And what Tom is saying, well, it doesn't have to be the only priority.
And I could not agree more. You will never catch me saying that Notre Dame's not a football school and shouldn't be a football school. They absolutely should be. They should also be, a lacrosse school and a fencing school and everything else. I'm okay with all of that.
Right. But none of those
are paying the bills.
Are going to make money.
100%. And you're going to make more money with a successful football team than you are with a successful basketball team. That's just the bottom line. And I believe he made the point. I think he was the one that made the point. It might have been you and I going back and forth too. But the point is, one of the things that Notre Dame believes is that winning a football national championship will have a trickle-down effect to sports like basketball, And so that's why they're putting a lot of their eggs in the football basket,
right?
And not enough eggs in the basketball basket.
If football has the success that they want it to have, and that's getting to the college football playoff every year, win a national championship, that is obviously a huge priority for Pete Babak.
Sure.
And I'm not saying it wasn't for Jack Swarbrick, but I mean,
Pete
Babak was been, and right.
Yeah.
but Pete Bavacqua has been very
yeah.
out front about it in the relatively short amount of time that he has been the athletic director at his alma mater, Notre Dame. Winning a national championship in football is the priority. And I think when you look at sort of the approach that they're taking right now with everything that they are investing, like if you check that off and you are in the playoff and you're able to cash those big checks, that ultimately that is going to trickle down to the other sports. But the other side of that is it doesn't have to be an all or nothing situation, because you are still just a year removed from the college football playoff, where you raked in all that $20 million to yourself by getting to a national championship game. There's still, should be plenty of pieces of pie to share with everybody else. And what Tom is saying right now is you're not going all in on men's basketball. You're not making it a priority.
Well, and he made a great point about the 4 schools that were the previous stops for the transfers that came into Notre Dame. I mean, what was it? Lehigh, Northern Arizona, and like
Monmouth.
Yeah, like that's not going to move the needle. It's just not. And the fact that, one of your big transfer guys was from Northern Arizona, and now he's going to try his hand at football.
Monmouth, Northern Arizona, Lehigh, and Madonna University. That's
like that's not going to do it. You know what I mean? That's not going to move the needle. And you can be as good as you want to be in high school recruiting. And to your point, you made this point the other day. Everybody's talking about his big heralded recruiting class that's going to be coming in, and it consists of his son and the 2 sons of the strength coach.
Right.
Like
who they just hired before they signed his 2 sons.
Yes. Like, not saying that those guys are bad, but like that's the class. So, so there is in this day and age, and Tom makes this point very clear and well done. He's like, this is 2026. You cannot treat Notre Dame basketball like it's 2000, like it's 1990. You can't do that. And that's what Notre Dame is doing right now. And you will not be successful with that game plan. It's just not going to work.
And there was a time, I mean, before those 2 Elite 8 runs that Mike Bray went on, there was conversation going on over there about, look, there's just no juice in this program right now. No one's excited about this program right now. And they were talking about if Mike Bray doesn't do something here in the very near future, it's probably going to be time to make a change. Well, what happened? They ripped off a run to the Elite 8 and they did it again the next year. It's hard to make a change when you're going to the Elite 8 2 years in a row, someplace you haven't been in decades. And that gave Mike Bray a little bit of wind in his sails for a few years, obviously at the very tail end. And I think that's what sticks with most people with the Bray era, is that tail end is what sticks with people the most. And he deserves to be criticized for it, because I do think that, he was kind of sitting back, phoning it in to some extent, like in some different ways. There's no way around that at this point. But at the same time, when you look at the Mike Bray era, which lasted 23 years, they were in the tournament 13 times in 23 years. Like, that's a pretty good clip at a place like Notre Dame. And I do feel like a lot of people are completely disregarding that and have forgotten about that. But there are a lot of people who, even during that run, when they're making all those NCAA tournaments, were like, this team isn't sexy enough. It's not exciting enough. It's not fun, blah, blah, blah. Or they were getting to the tournament. Like what do you need? Like, do you need runs to the Final Four to get excited? I don't know.
Well, and I think that, we're looking at like the 10-year anniversary of, making those Elite 8 runs, which is hard to believe that it was 10 years ago. But, that was a fun and exciting team to watch, number one. The thing is, and to Tom's point in his article, the Mike Bray era and the way Mike Bray operated and was successful at Notre Dame when he was successful, that formula doesn't work anymore.
It's gone.
That formula is expired. Like you can't
rely on banking guys and hoping they stay around for 5 and 6 years.
It's never going to happen. Like it's like remember he would bring guys in, he'd bury them on the bench for 2-3 years, and then they'd come out and they'd play for 2 or 3 years and be good, and they'd be these heady 5th-year seniors and all of these different things. That is never going to happen again. And the only way you're going to get those heady fifth-year seniors is if you spend the money in the transfer portal. And that's where Pete Bavacqua and Notre Dame need to step into 2026.
Okay, so I'm going to read a couple parts from Tom Noy's article. You can go to southbendtribune.com. I'm going to read kind of what I think are the main points that he really hits in this. He says the easiest solution for what ails a Notre Dame team, now 12-16 overall, 3-12 in the ACC, currently on the outside looking in for next month's conference tournament, is to fire the head coach. Of course, after this one, just fire everybody. Eat the final 4 seasons of Shrewsbury's contract, hit the reset button, and start over. Sounds good about right now, right? It hasn't worked since Notre Dame last did that in 2023. Where's the evidence that it will work now? Here's a hint. It won't. Firing everybody only prolongs the problem. Subtracting Shrewsbury and starting over won't fix what ails Notre Dame basketball. A new coach, a new staff, a new direction, but the same old issues. He's basically just saying you're putting a Band-Aid on the greater problem by firing the head coach. And I would agree with that. And let me scroll forward a little bit. Okay. Tuesday should be Notre Dame's basketball wake-up call. It needs to see why that happened against Duke happened and understand that there's only one way to fix it. Get into 2026. Open your eyes and your checkbook and act like the 8th winningest program in college basketball history. My screen jumped forward there for a second, so I'm trying to.
Well, I was going to say they're the 8th.
Be a player in college basketball and stop getting played, is what Tom Noy says, and that means you've got to go all in. Yeah. You've either got to be in or out on the transfer portal. You can't be dabbling in these gray areas. I mean, you just hired a general manager this past offseason. So are things actually is that going to signify the change, or are you just going to go out and, grab Madonna U again? And, those mid-major guys have helped other programs, but you also have to have some dudes, legit dudes of your own to augment that. You can go and you can get some mid-major guys that can help your program, guys with some experience, but you've got to have more than that. To really get this thing turned around, you've got to go all in on somebody and say, we're going to go out and get a difference maker if you really want to make a difference and turn this thing around.
You talk about dabbling, you're either in or you're out. I'm sorry, man, maybe I'm wrong here, but it feels like dabbling to have a general manager that covers both men's and women's basketball. It feels like you're kind of half in, you're kind of half, we'll get somebody and they can just do both. You should have one for the men, you should have one for the women. I'm sorry, this is Notre Dame. You've got the money, you've got the access, you've got everything that you need. Why are you trying to have somebody do both jobs right now? That, it'd be one thing if this was the beginning of all of those things.
You've said from the beginning, because it is, it's they're both basketball, but
they're completely different.
One, it's two different teams, and it's two different sports, really, when it comes down to it.
It's two completely different worlds. Games.
Yeah, right. Because on the women's side, you can invest in a player for the long run. Where in the men's, like the elites, like Duke and Kansas and Kentucky and UConn, these are all programs who are going to go out. They're going to sign a big check. They're going to get one of the best players. They're going to get a top 5 player in the country for 1 year, and then that player is going to jump to the NBA. Now, I'm not saying that Notre Dame men's basketball, can be in that area, but at the very least, I think you can get a top 15-ish, top 20-ish player that can go out and make a difference for you. They got Blake Wesley before NIL. I certainly didn't think he was going to be one and done and jump right to the NBA. I don't think Mike Bray thought that. I think that he thought that he'd at least be around for 2, if not 3 years. It obviously worked out differently, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, and there were extenuating circumstances there as well. It wasn't just a talent situation, but I do.
True. That's true.
Yeah, but I mean that's water.
But he's still wearing an NBA uniform.
100%. Yeah, no, 100%. When he's not injured, he's still wearing an NBA, and he's made a ton of money in the NBA. So more power to him. But yeah, it's just a completely different scenario right now. And Pete Bavacqua and Notre Dame have to make a concerted effort. And changing the coach isn't the answer, right? There are things that I have
I
disagreed.
100% agree with that at
Yeah.
this point. Like I do. Go ahead. I'll let you talk and then.
Yeah, I was just going to say there are certainly things I have disagreed with from a coaching standpoint, and like, the way he acted after the Cal game and like things like that. Absolutely not good, right? But firing him with 4 years left on his contract, number one, you don't want to have to pay him all this money and not put that money into the program. That's number one.
No, exactly. It runs counter. That's
right.
what Tom
completely
is saying,
counter.
basically.
Yeah,
it runs counter to everything. Yeah.
And who are you going to bring in that is going to change everything completely if you still don't have the backing of the university to go out and do what you need to do?
It doesn't matter who the coach is if you're not investing the money in getting the players. And whether you like it or not, the world we live in is you have to invest the money to get the players.
Right.
And, that's a big part of what Tom is saying. There is a lot of money that's going into football, deservedly so. Again, none of us are complaining about that because it is a priority for them to win a national championship. But again, at the same time, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing situation. You can also invest money in basketball and field at least a competitive program because, this is one of the questions that I asked Tom yesterday, and I wish that I actually would have, cut the sound bite and had it ready to go. And we can talk about it again later. Like how much better would they be if Marcus Burton were actually playing? And Tom,
what was his response?
He basically, would they be a little bit better? Yeah. Would they be closer to 500 in the ACC? Probably, but probably still wouldn't be above 500.
But is that the goal? Like, is 500 in the ACC the goal? Like, I feel like the goal should be higher than that.
It's not the goal, but if you're Notre Dame right now and you're trying to climb and get back into the tournament, I think that is the first goal. Like, you're never going to go into a season as a coach saying, we want to be 500 in the ACC. But if you look at the big picture, 500 in the ACC typically means you're going to, at the very minimum, be around the NCAA tournament bubble. If you can be 500 in your league, you're going to be in the conversation for the NCAA tournament. So that's what I'm saying in terms of 500 in your conference.
So, and we were saying at the beginning of the year that we expected this team to be a bubble team. That's 500 in the conference.
Yeah.
So if Marcus Burton was healthy, they are who we thought they were. So is that good? Is that bad? What is that? I don't know.
We do know that they were much more competitive against Houston earlier in the season when Marcus Burton was playing. They were somewhat competitive with Kansas as well. And these are two teams that are, that have been in the top 10 in the last couple of weeks. Kansas got knocked back out after they got knocked off at home over the weekend against Cincinnati. But, like both of those teams are at least, top 10-ish, top 15-ish teams. And Notre Dame with Marcus Burton and Jalen Harrelson and a full complement, they were at least more competitive with those teams in November still when they played early December, so.
And
who's to say what they might have grown into?
Sure. And I don't know if Harrelson's growth would have been the same if Marcus Burton was there and he didn't have to be the guy, when Burton went out. But Harrelson has gotten markedly better since those games against Houston and Kansas and all of that. He's a way better player. So, I mean, if his trajectory stayed the same and you had Marcus Burton, they are a 500 team in the ACC. And I think that would have been right around the expectation mark. Now, it would have gone into the next year with higher expectations, progressively getting better and better.
Yes.
I don't think we can say that right now.
I think that there are even more question marks now.
Oh my gosh.
You haven't had those guys.
I mean, can you guarantee me that Jalen Harrelson, and Marcus Burton are going to be on the team next year?
Can't guarantee it.
Now,
Tom did seem pretty optimistic about Burton being back next year.
Okay. I mean, he's got 2 years of eligibility left. I would imagine, he'll get this year back, and then he's got another year. So that'd be great to have him around for another 2 years, and supposedly these three guys coming in are talented and I do think the current freshmen are getting better, They're just not ready to carry the team.
Yeah, I mean, you still, like Jesse's talked about this, and it's great that Carson Tout rebounds, but you need a real scoring presence in the middle that you don't have right now. Like, that is something that has been completely lacking going back to, to the Bond. Like, that was like the Bonzi Colsons, the Luke Heron Godys, like Tom brought up Martin Gebbin, like they have had some guys. Now, one of these guys next year is 7'1", but as we talked about yesterday, he's probably a little bit more along the project, like a project, because he hasn't played that much organized basketball. Right. He's still learning how to play the game. So, what kind of actual scoring threat he's going to give you, I don't know. But like Zach Edey, like he turned himself into obviously a really great player when he was at Purdue. So I'm not saying that this guy is going to be Zach Edey, but at the same time, can you grow? Can you develop and become something 3 years down the road? Again, like, that's not the way college basketball is going right now.
And that's the thing. You bring up Heron Gody and, some of these guys that Bonzi Colson, for example, like some of these guys that were complete afterthoughts early on in their high school or in their college career, complete afterthoughts, right? And then they slowly worked their way into the lineup and became Notre Dame superstars. You're just never going to see that again. I don't think, I mean, that's just not the nature of college basketball, and people are too impatient. And by people, I mean fans, I mean coaches and players.
Interesting that we're kind of having this conversation revolving around basketball right now, because in the second hour in Rapid Fire, we got to talk to Aaron Henry, Notre Dame's new co-defensive coordinator and defensive backs coach today. And there's a comment from him kind of along these lines. So I'll kind of do a long tease that now. We're going to hear some of those comments from Aaron Henry in Rapid Fire in the 6 o'clock hour. But some timely comments, I think, from him.
Nice.
All right. So we went down the basketball rabbit hole. We'll take a break. When we come back, we do have some questions from the Irish Breakdown Champions Lounge regarding Notre Dame football and another topic or two that we will get to here in this first hour of the show. You can also, I don't know, the chat has been kind of up and down. I don't know if everyone's just been paying rapt attention to what we're talking about with basketball or what, but there was definitely a boiling point, I think, reached last night when you lose by 44 points at home. The worst loss in almost 130 years of in the last 130 years of Notre Dame basketball. Worst home loss for the Fighting Irish. But we'll take a break. When we come back, some Notre Dame football talk with Vince DiDario, Sean Stiers, Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com continues. I'm Sean Stiers along with Vince D'Addario. Chugging on through the show. We talked a lot of Notre Dame men's basketball to open up the show today.
A little something different. I like it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's not happy news, but
no,
still needs to be discussed. And, you know, and I will say this. I really enjoy going to basketball games at Purcell and all of that. And I've had no desire to go see a men's game this year.
It's
tough.
What
I mean?
It's tough, man.
And I'm not like searching them out on TV and things like that. And I actually feel guilty about that. Like I should be, you know, supporting them better and, you know, that kind of stuff. It's hard to watch, man. It's just hard to watch.
It is, because even in the games they're competitive. I think the biggest thing going toward next year, whatever the roster ends up being, like there needs to be some kind of identity with the men's team. What is it right now?
Yeah, when Micah Shrewsbury first took over, remember the identity? It was defense. Like it was. We don't even talk about offense at practice. It's defense
and
like
ball effort. You know, all those different things. And unfortunately, like we don't hear as much about the effort this year. But the first 2 years, you know, he had to go on the effort rants and all that kind of stuff. And it just, you know, for anyone who thinks they quit I don't think they quit last night. There were still guys diving for loose balls, you know, and it was a 30-plus point game and that kind of thing. It's just hard to watch right now. When you're sitting at the bottom of the ACC looking up, and you know that first year when Bray went into the ACC, that was rough that year as well. And we're like, man, what did they get themselves into by joining the ACC? But then, boom, it's like the heavens opened and the lights went, you know, and again, they had two miraculous seasons and they still managed a couple good years. And then it just fell off the cliff, unfortunately, at a point. And there's a long way to go to get back.
There really is. That's the problem.
Somewhat relevancy for men's basketball in the ACC.
They're not like a player away. You know what I mean? They're a culture shift away. And that's not an overnight thing. And it's the transfer portal, it's recruiting, it's, you know, coaching, it's an identity, like you said, like it's all of these things that they don't have a handle on right now. And that's the most disappointing part of this whole scenario. You know what I mean? It's just one thing if you're not talented enough, you know what I mean? And it's one thing if you're not this, and it's one thing if you're just not that. Like, it's just a lot of different things to me.
At the end of the day, no half measures. You can't go in with half measures. Are you in this thing? Are you invested in this thing or not? And they've got to, and when I say they, I'm talking about the university, the athletic department, or, you know, whatever level. It has to start at the top and then trickle down. Are you invested in this thing or not? That's what it comes down to.
Well,
and show that they are. Right now, they're not showing that they are.
And that is a very, very good point. And we just saw with this last transfer portal cycle in football, undergrads are getting in.
Right.
And that should not be any different for any other sport.
Right.
And
so at a very minimum, if it's good enough, like if that is good enough for football, it's got to be good enough for the two basketball programs.
And that minimum. And you know what that costs you? Nothing. It doesn't cost you a dime.
That's right.
Right? I mean, yeah, there might be NIL deals and that kind of stuff, but like getting in the undergrad kids doesn't cost you anything. So does it trickle down? And I'm sure you'll hear about it before anybody else because your ears to the ground, you know, with the women's program and, you know, that kind of stuff. And Tom talks to us about the men's program and things like that. But, you know, that's the easiest overnight change that you can make. The easiest one. And the groundwork is there based on what football was just able to do. It's right there in black and white. Why is this not happening in basketball?
Yeah, Stymie says I don't even want to go down that road.
Oh,
cheerleading players that works for Alabama. I mean, the biggest difference I would say is in Alabama, it's a state school. So you can go to the courts and you can apply and you can get the injunctions and the judge is going to, it's good old boy down there. They're just going to, yeah, sure, go ahead, go through.
Right.
And then, it gets to a point where it gets kicked out, and you're not going to get that at a private school. It's just going to be completely different. You're not going to get that same kind of treatment at Notre Dame, because like it's just the odds that that's going to happen are slim and none. And obviously look how it's worked out for Alabama. It's backfired in the long run. Let's get to a couple of these mailbag questions from the Champions Lounge. Jake asks, what do you think are the odds that CJ Carr comes back for 2027 for further development, even if he is the consensus number 1 overall pick at the end of next season?
I'll say that there's a chance, but it's not a high chance. And this is not like insider information. Like I know the Carr family and what their thought process is, or anything like that. This is a business decision, right? If you're guaranteed to be the number 1 overall pick, why would you come back? I mean, so I'd put it like 3 out of 10, 2 out of 10, somewhere in that neighborhood. I just, there's love of university. There's getting your degree. Like there's all those wonderful things to think about. But at the end of the day, college is there to get you ready for your professional life, whatever that is, right? If you're going to school to be a teacher, you're going to school to be an engineer, or if you're CJ Carr, you're going to school to become an NFL player. And there's no higher status than being the number 1 overall draft pick.
Right.
So,
like, what are you further developing for?
Right. Right.
You're going to be the number 1 pick. And you can say, well, he doesn't want to play for whatever team it ends up being, the Jets or whatever. Right. But no matter what year you come out, you're always, if you're projected to be the number 1 pick, you're always going to go to whoever the worst team was.
A garbage team.
Year. Yeah. You're going to go to an organization that is floundering.
Unless somebody sells the farm to move up.
Decaf is drinking something today that nobody else is drinking because he says it's a 7. Like, this is what Decaf wants.
Yes.
That ain't what Decaf is going to get. Robin says 3. John says 1. I agree with John. This is a very, very low chance. 1 is the only chance that I would give it. 1 out of 10, because always leave some wiggle room for some miracle. But this is really a 0. If he's projected as the number 1 pick, like if CJ Carr follows the Fernando Mendoza path, next in 2026, wins a Heisman Trophy, wins a national championship, projected to be the number 1 guy, which I think that he will be if those things happen. I can't see him coming back. I just can't see it.
Well, and I am like, you're not going to find anybody who's a bigger proponent of getting your degree and education and all of those. Like, you're not going to find anybody more like as a parent or whatever. But if I'm CJ Carr's parent and I know that he's going to go number 1 in the draft, I'm telling him to go number 1 in the draft.
Well, look, and this is his 3rd year that he's going into.
Yeah.
So he should be on track.
Point.
And he was an early enrollee as well. So he should be on track to get his degree.
It's a great point. He'd be real close to getting it. And if he's not,
he might be a semester short, depending on what his workload is look like and everything else.
He could get it in the off season between rookie year and year 2. You know what I mean? Like he's going to be close enough where he could probably do some online stuff and get it done. So even if that wasn't the case, I would tell him to go. Even if he had another year to go, I would tell him to go. Like, you're number 1. Like, what if you get injured? What if all of the what ifs are too big?
Yeah.
The
what ifs are too big and the check is too big.
Yeah, man.
For whatever
generational life-changing money.
Back, especially if he wins a national like if he does those 2 things, either one of those things, Heisman and or national championship, either one, it's and you're projected that high. What's the benefit in coming back for another year when you risk everything by one stupid fluke play?
Right.
Jalen Smith is the example.
Right. And he would never ask my opinion, but I would tell him to go. And as much as a fan, I would love for him to stick around. Are you kidding me? Like, of course I would.
Everybody would love for him to stick around.
Oh, my goodness.
It's just, it's not very likely. Joe asks a very good question after we got the spring practice schedule. Would you rather have more team access in the spring practice sessions or in the fall?
Well, if you're giving me one or the other, that's easy. I'd rather have fall because the whole team is there. there's still some guys that are going to report, in the summertime. And so they're, you don't have everybody. Yeah, most everybody there, but you don't have everybody there. And so I want the whole team on the field ready to roll. So I would choose the fall. But the reality is we're not going to get much. So it just is what it is.
My answer is yes. Give me both. Give me all of it. I want everything. I'm not even
the
going
whole
to be shy
thing.
about it. I would honestly pick the spring because I think
okay.
I think that this time of year, look, the pickings are already much more slim this year, especially compared to last year when they played until the end of January. Like we need more things to talk about in March and April. And, like to vault us into the summer when it's really going to get dry. Now it's nice to have some of that stuff in the fall because you're getting more kind of concrete what things are going to look like, but that content, like having the ability to see more things in the spring, which, look, it's less consequential, right? Like we're getting 2 full practices and we're getting 2 partial practices this year. And then the blue gold game. Like what is going to happen this spring that, like the doors need to close like that? We used to talk about, oh man, we get all these partial practices and we only get, like a handful of full practices.
Didn't know how good we had it.
Yeah, exactly. And so I would rather at least have more in the spring because we can continue to use some of that going through, based on what we see in the spring through the summer as well. Like once fall camp comes around, yeah, you'd like to, we got some access in the fall, but it still never really gave us any indication, in a lot of, you're still relying on intel and stuff like that in terms of, like look at last year. You can understand when they close shop when you've got a quarterback competition and stuff like that going on. And even last spring when there's a quarterback, but none of that is happening this year. So I'd rather have more in the spring just, because again, that's content that you can generate off of going into the summer.
It's interesting because I was, sitting here in my fantastical world and thinking to myself, oh, there's no quarterback competition. They're going to give us all kinds of access in the spring. Nope, less. Like I should never be surprised, but I actually was a little taken aback by the lack of access this spring. I really was. I was like, what are they hiding? There's nothing to hide this time around. Like we all know what to expect.
You got both coordinators coming back.
Yep.
You've got the starting quarterback coming back. Now you've got
almost every offensive player coming back. I mean, obviously with the insert of some wide receivers and things like that, you got almost the entire starting defense coming back.
For the most part, you've got an offensive line battle and a backup quarterback competition. Like
correct.
Those are the only things of any real competitions going on.
Right.
And a bunch of young guys.
Yes.
Who also, would be, because people ask about the young guys all the time.
Absolutely.
In fact, there's a question here about the young guys. And so we're not even really going to get a chance to see much of them.
Nope.
This spring. And that's another thing that you typically get in the spring if you have early enrollees. And now you've got more early enrollees than you've ever had before. We're barely going to get a chance to see them. So Craig says, name a portal offensive and defensive player that you were most excited about and an incoming freshman offensive and defensive player.
Oh my goodness gracious. I don't know about the freshman. I'll be honest with you. Like that one for me, like it's like I believe freshmen are going to help when I see it. Like that's where I'm at when it comes to the freshmen. As far as the offensive players, it's the 2 wide receivers, from Ohio State, and
Quincy Porter and Mylan Graham. Top of my list.
Yeah. And I don't either one. You know what I mean? I don't really care which one's which. I'm excited to see both of them. I think they both have an opportunity to make some waves in the wide receiver room. So both of those guys I'm excited about. And then on the defensive side, it's the defensive linemen. It's Gray, it's Brew. Look like those guys, Keon Keeley, like. The defensive line is the exciting part as far as the transfer portal is concerned. So it's not necessarily a player; it's more like position groups: wide receiver on offense, defensive line on defense.
I agree. Like the freshmen are tough because
my
excitement maybe it's because we don't follow, you and I, recruiting the way
Right.
really a lot of fans follow recruiting, and obviously some others, in the business follow recruiting. But I don't get as worked up expecting any like short-term results when it comes to freshmen. As far as I'm concerned, anything you get is basically gravy. Like
Yeah.
I don't expect a lot from these guys ever coming in the door. Now, there's a ton of talent, especially on the defensive side of the ball with these guys coming in, even offensive as well. So like again, like my excitement is not about what they're going to do this year. It's more a long game kind of play. But I mean, like Dunham and Iwatade, the two defensive linemen, there's a lot to be excited about there. Kahari Adams, another guy in the secondary, there's a lot to be excited about there. Again, if we're following recruiting rankings, and Javian Osborne, the running back as well, but again, I don't have a lot of expectations for freshman season. That doesn't mean that one of them might not make a dent. Odds are one or two of them are going to make some kind of dent. I just don't like to put a lot of expectations right away, because it's not even the guys really that you get excited about sometimes that ended up being the ones who make the most immediate impact.
Great point. I'll go with the expected answer, and I'll go with Jasper Scaife, the punter from Australia. Excited to see if he can actually kick the ball. Yeah.
So Vanilla Chill had a question. I feel like we talked this pretty much to death in the first hour about what can be done with the Notre Dame men's basketball program.
Okay.
If you missed that, you can go back, you can listen to the podcast, you can watch the YouTube from earlier. We talked all about Notre Dame men's basketball, but Vanilla Chill also, and this is your buddy, isn't it? Vanilla Chill, the guy.
Yeah. Yep.
Now that I think about it. He says, on to the women's team. I feel like this latest stretch has been an encouraging sign for Niele Ivey and the program developing. Seems like the team is gelling well and playing well in a year where I did not think they would be in the tournament at all. Do you feel the same? I feel the same about the first part of your statement. They have definitely continued to gel and come together. I think that KK Bransford, it's been really big getting her back, considering the depth that they lacked already, even when she was healthy. And then with her being out for an extended time, getting her back has been really important. A, just to have another body out there, but B, because she is so versatile. And I think that the perimeter defense has gotten a lot better since KK has come back, because she is such a good defender. And they've also, in this latest stretch, I think it's 4 or 5 games, basically since the Virginia Tech game. That's been, is it 2 weeks ago, or it all blurs together?
I bet it does.
It's either 2 or 3 weeks ago. Since Virginia Tech, Gisela Sanchez has come in, and she's basically boom, boom, hit a couple threes off the bench basically in every game. She's averaged about 2 threes per game, beginning with Virginia Tech, when I think she had a 14-point game. And since Virginia Tech, she has really come in and given them a nice little spark off the bench that they hadn't been getting. I think it was the previous 10 games before that, she was like 1 for 7 from 3-point range overall. And in this stretch since Virginia Tech, I think she's had like 9 or 10 3-pointers now at this point. And so she's given them a really nice spark. Now, so again, I agree with the team coming together in these last few games, and it is definitely encouraging because they have played themselves well above the bubble right now. I've never agreed with the second part about not being in the tournament. I've said all along, you go back, however many shows you like to the beginning of the season, I always felt like this was going to be a tournament team, but it just wasn't going to look like what these last few seasons have looked like, because they didn't have the depth, that they didn't have the Sonia Citron and Miles and Hidalgo and Westbeld, and some of the portal players that they were able to add along with them over the last few years. It's looked different, but I've always felt like they would be a tournament team, and they're going to be a tournament team when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I was obviously I take a lot of my cues from you for obvious reasons, but I never thought that they weren't going to be a tournament team. And just because there is still much more in the women's game than in the men's game, the haves and the have-nots.
Mhm.
And I don't want to paint it with that broad of a brush, but there is a certain factor of teams that are going to be in the tournament, and then there's a pretty kind of a fall off, and then you get to kind of the rest of the teams, right? And so Notre Dame's still going to be in that upper echelon. They're still good enough to be in the tournament. They're still going to, even though this is a roster that is quote unquote down this year, they're still going to compete. They're still going to be, a team to be reckoned with in the ACC, and they're still going to make the tournament. So I was never worried they weren't going to make the tournament. It's just all about where they're going to get seated, where you're going to end up having to fly to and play on a home court, those kinds of things. And those are legitimate concerns, legitimate questions, but I was never worried about them making the tournament.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, they've still got the best player in the ACC, and there's an argument that they've got
the country
in the country. That's exactly right. They still have that, and I always felt like having that, that was going to help them through some things. Now, there have been some ups and downs. They've lost a couple games that you wouldn't have thought that they would lose. But look at the men's side. Look at Kansas. Kansas has beaten some of the elite teams in the country. They just beat Houston, a top 5 team, the other night. They beat the number 1 team in the country last week, Arizona, that was formerly unbeaten. They've beaten teams like that, and then they turned around and they lost by 15 points at home to an unranked Cincinnati team. So like, even teams that are chock full of some of that talent can lay an egg sometimes. So there's definitely been more up and down inconsistency with this women's team this year, but they're going to be an NCAA tournament team, and they are also like to the point about this last stretch, and I didn't mention this before, they're sharing the ball really well right now. They had, I think it was 17 assists a couple of games ago. It was like 18 or 19 the other day, and I think that's something that Niele Ivey and her staff have really been trying to drive home, is like more assists, continue to share the ball, and things are going to go really well. And as Decaf said, we didn't even get a chance to mention this, but Niele Ivey was named the head coach of the USA U18 team. She's been an assistant for Team USA for the past couple of years, and she's going to be the head coach of the U18 team this summer, playing in the AmeriCup. And I would not be shocked if within the next 10 or 12 years, I don't know exactly how long it's going to take, but I think Niele will ultimately end up being the head coach of a USA Olympic team. I would not be surprised if that happens.
She's kind of in that pipeline, which is fantastic. I want to ask you this, because there's 2 regular season games left. They're both difficult games. They're both against teams that are at the top of the ACC. What are your expectations for the last 2 games and then leading into the ACC tournament? I think
they've got a really good chance to win both of them.
Okay.
Like tomorrow they play a good Syracuse team, but they play them at home. They've been really good at home this year. So, like, they've beaten both North Carolina and NC State, 2 teams that are up, the top 4 or 5 teams in the conference right now. They beat both of them at home. Virginia Tech is up there, a few spots ahead of them in the ranking. They've beaten them at home a couple of weeks ago, and they did that shorthanded as well. So I think they've got a really good shot tomorrow. Muffet McGraw earlier this week was kind of reminding fans when we had her on, hey, this is a big game coming up Thursday night against Syracuse. It's senior night, it's the home finale and the whole thing. And Louisville on the road, that's not going to be an easy game. The Irish did play them, I think, very well at home, a month and a half ago, whenever that was. And Taj Roberts, Louisville's best player, don't know what her status is going to be for that game today. She hurt her, it was the lower leg thing. No, I don't think they've said anything official. So her status as of right now is up in the air. So I think they've got a really good shot in both games, and they are still mathematically alive to finish as high as 3rd in the ACC if they could win both of those games and then get some help in front of them. So, yeah.
Okay. I was just curious what your thoughts were. And, look, if they can play well in these last 2 games, maybe win 1 or 2 or both, that's a huge springboard going into the ACC tournament too.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the biggest thing is if you can get right now, they would be the 9 seed. If they can get out of that 8, 9, and at least get up to number 7, then you don't have to play the top seed in the tournament in your second game potentially, which would be Duke, and they didn't do very well against Duke the first time. But yeah, so that's kind of I think the short-term goal. Win these games, have a chance to maybe move up to 6 or 7, and play a little bit different opponent in your second round, and have a chance, a good chance to make a run in the ACC tournament. There's a lot on the line with these last couple games coming up.
Yeah.
All right, we're a little bit behind. We'll take a timeout. Rapid fire coming up in hour number 2. You're going to hear from new Notre Dame co-defensive coordinator and defensive backs coach Aaron Henry. We talked to him today, and we've got some comments from Aaron Henry that we'll have for you in rapid fire in hour 2. That's coming up. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com.
Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com on Sports Radio WSBT.
Glad to have you with us as we start hour number 2 of the show, along with Vince D'Addario. I'm Sean Stiers, and we've come to the point where we can safely say it's rapid fire time. Are you ready, Vince?
I'm always ready for rapid fire, as long as I'm unmuted. That's important.
I was going to say, I was worried there for a second. There was a little bit of a pregnant pause. Thought maybe you were doing the radio stiff arm there. So.
You never know. You know, technology is wonderful when it works, and so you never know.
No, sir. As a matter of fact, I am not ready for rapid fire. I sit here, and I will stare at you through the screen.
Stare at you down. Makes for good radio.
Yes, exactly. So we got to talk with Aaron Henry, Notre Dame's new defensive backs coach and co-defensive coordinator today over at Notre Dame. We had a chance to talk with him for the first time for a few minutes, first time since he took the job recently. So what has struck Aaron Henry the most since he got to Notre Dame last month?
Really understand the level of talent in that room until the first day I walked in there. Now, after I took the job, I had heard about it, but I didn't understand it until I truly walked in there and I started watching the film. I'm like, okay, they are really good, right? And my goal and purpose isn't to like change anything. It's just to help tweak it, help refine it, to help try to make it better. You know what I mean? Like to an already really talented group. That's all I want to do. Again, credit to Coach Ash and Coach Mickens. They did an incredible job last year, you know. But like taking an opportunity like this, one of the guys downstairs asked me, "Is it pressure?" I'm like, pressure? Like, no, dude. Like this is not pressure. This is a luxury, to be honest with you. I think we all want to have an opportunity to develop.
All right. So there's some of the first comments from Aaron Henry. That says what to you, Vince?
It says that he wasn't prepared to be interviewed because he didn't watch any Notre Dame film. No, I'm just kidding.
No, you know, and I think we might hear this in one of his other cuts, but something that he talked about was he didn't want to watch much film of these guys because he wanted to take it in on the field himself when he actually saw these guys on the field. He didn't want to build, especially with the younger guys, but even some of the older guys, he didn't want to build like any preconceived notions before he was actually up close and personal with him. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Well, it explains away what I just said. So good for him. Appreciate that. No, I think it also solidifies the fact of what we've been saying all along, that room is just chock full of talent. And, you know, he knows talent when he sees it. He's put guys in the NFL in the past. And so he knows it when he sees it, and he noticed it right away when he walked in that room. And so, again, it just solidifies what we've been saying all along and what we've all been lucky enough to watch on the field as fans and as analysts and everything else. We see it day to day. We see it every day. He now is seeing it, and he's like, okay, good thing I took this job.
Well, yeah. And, you know, I think it's one thing for us to kind of, see what we think we see. It's another thing when a coach walks in the door and he talks about, boom, you know, like that, the level of talent, the level of skill just hits a guy in the face like that, because it's not like he came from a bottom tier program in the Big Ten. Has he been at an elite program in the Big Ten? No, he came from the University of Illinois, but like the level of talent there has been on the rise over the last couple of years since he's worked for Brett Bielema over there. And as he said, like putting guys in the NFL, like a Devin Witherspoon, who you'll hear more specifically about here in a little bit. But so I think that to hear a guy like him say it definitely jumps out at you. And like he was talking, like the comment that he made about pressure, apparently someone, we've talked about this before. They split this up so that there is a downstairs inside the Irish Athletic Center, and that is where the TV/video people do their interviews. And so they do one set of interviews there, and then they go upstairs and they do another set of interviews with, basically like the beat reporters, the writers predominantly. And I'm kind of, like in that mix as well as radio, because obviously I don't have a camera that I have to worry about. And, honestly, I think you tend to get better answers upstairs. And, so like that's kind of what he was referring to. But somebody had asked him about there being pressure. And I think that had to do with the fact that he's replacing a guy like Mike Mickens. And he said downstairs in some of the comments, he didn't talk about this as much upstairs, but he talked downstairs about the fact that he just called Mike Mickens and he, was talking to him about some of the ins and outs and players and stuff like that. So I think that that's interesting as well, that he connected with Mike Mickens and, like
that. Now that's doing your due diligence on the job though. So that I give him complete credit for.
Right. But I think the point he's making is how can there be that, how can there be pressure when there's this much talent in the room?
Good point. You just don't mess it up. Don't
and that's
mess it
kind
up.
of what we said, like you should be able to roll out, just a pretty good defensive backs coach with the kind of guys that they've got in this room and the guys they've got coming in this room.
It is not my intention to be Mr. Negative, but I will bring up one other thing that I was thinking about when I was listening to him.
Okay.
He's saying all the right things. And I feel like a year ago, Chris Ash was saying all the right things as well. Like, I'm not coming in here to change anything. I'm here to, coach up Notre. That's the only thing. I'll say that.
Okay.
But not to get people freaked
I suppose
out.
it's fair, especially since he does have the connection to Chris Ash.
Right. Right. Now, he doesn't have as much, quote unquote power as Chris Ash, even though he is the co-defensive coordinator. So it's the only part. And because it's like, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, or whatever it is. Yeah, whatever that saying is that I just screwed up. Yeah. So nervous.
All right. So some other topics that were covered. Christian Gray, been around the block a little bit. Will Christian Gray see some time at nickel for the Irish this season? Here's what Aaron Henry, how he responded to that.
Yeah, I think with a guy as talented as him, I think you work him inside, you work him outside. You just try to give him the opportunity to just really showcase his ability, showcase his talent. We got a couple of obviously Dallas Golden as well. We got a couple of nickel candidates that we're gonna play there. But Christian is a guy who he's shown he can play outside, right? May move him inside to see if he can do it. I think it's trying to find the best group of guys who give us the best chance to go out there and have success when we roll out the ball, whether it's spring practice or fall camp or the season.
All right, Vince, what do you think?
It's like the offensive line. You guys got to find the 5 best guys and just figure out where they plug in. I think it's exactly that for this defensive backfield. Find the 5 best guys and figure out where they slot in, and that includes the safeties, right? So I think that's the right answer. I think he's keeping it vague on purpose with Christian Gray, and I think he should, because I do think Christian Gray can play both positions. And so if you can find somebody that can force your hand to put Christian Gray inside, like that's what would have to happen. Mm-hmm. Somebody needs to play, well enough to push Christian Gray inside. If that happens, you're in great shape. You are in a very, very good position if that's the case. And so I think you do work them at both positions, and may the best man win, and you put your 5 best on the field.
I think so as well. And he mentioned Dallas Golden, and that's kind of the natural since Dallas played a little bit there last year and some of the opportunities that he had. But he was also asked, who are some other guys who might, get a shot there at nickel? And he's like, well, I don't want to go too far. We're not going to say too much. And, look, the fact that we're only going to get those 2 practices means that, that they're,
let the speculation begin.
Who all's auditioning. But yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see who shows up in those spots, when we're able to get out there. But I think that, Gray could give you, if he's comfortable playing there, right, which I think that he could be because there's less space, obviously, but he's going to give you a guy who can be really physical, which is something that you want from that position. So I think that there's a lot of potential upside there if Christian Gray is able to take that, especially if it's Gray and Dallas Golden and, in whatever kind of mix. I think that's pretty intriguing, pretty exciting potentially.
It's very intriguing and very exciting because, again, there is a bunch of talent there. It's now his job to figure out who goes where, where do the pieces fit to make this team the best that they can be. It's going to be fun to watch. Oh, wait, I forgot. We're not really going to be watching. Sorry.
Blue gold game, Vince. Blue gold game.
So fired up for that, by the way.
I know.
So excited.
Right here on Sports Radio WSBT, April 25th. Can't wait.
Yes.
So Seattle Seahawks cornerback Devin Witherspoon, Super Bowl champion Devin Witherspoon, who Henry coached at Illinois, came up a few times in the chat with Henry today. So with him in mind, Henry was asked about his philosophy on player development.
The process, man, like I think we live in a state of mind right now in this culture in college football, right? Guys come in and they want the microwave results, right? Like I get it. Sometimes you want to throw food in a microwave and it's easy to heat up, right? It's very, very fast, but over the long haul, it's not really beneficial for you. Right, like the process is like there are ingredients you got to add to this specific meal, right? That's going to be a lot healthier for you. That's going to be a lot more beneficial for you down the road, and it's going to take some time to cook. All right, and so are we trying to be a chef, or are we trying to be on an easy bake oven and make something really, really fast in the microwave, right? And so I use that analogy because like people see the end result of Devin Witherspoon. They don't know what happened in 2 years prior to that. Right, like they don't understand the process and making sure he gained weight so he can finish the season, and him being 155 pounds. Like they don't understand. They just see the final result, right? And it's a process to help developing these players, not just from an athletic standpoint, because more importantly, you can have all the athleticism in the world, but if you're not right here, right? Like let's not lose sight of mental health. If you don't have the guidance here, right, and the enough people around you to help you here, I don't care how talented you are.
Okay, so a couple things, Vince. I don't know if like how much you could hear of it. We officially have the Max Bulla replacement hand talker with the hand on the table. Like you can hear the pounding on the table with the hands for emphasis with some of those comments. Aaron Henry is officially the new hand talker on the defensive.
Got to have one. Got to have at least one.
Yes. Second thing, those easy bake ovens, man. Like, I don't know, you've got girls.
Listen,
those easy bake ovens are not, like they look nice. They're fun for the kids. Do they really cook a good product though? Like, is it really a fast cook in the easy bake oven with those light bulbs up there?
Yeah, he had me with the microwave results. He had me there.
And he went into the easy bake oven and he goes, I don't know about this.
Well, and he dropped the easy bake oven analogy, and I didn't even know they still made those things. Are they still a thing?
I don't know.
Like my kids never had one because I look at those things and I see mess.
My daughter had one, but that's been a long time ago. So a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just see like half, cooked batter, like that kind of stuff with a light bulb.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So like that just screams mess to me. And if we're going to use that analogy towards football players, I don't want any half-baked batter. So
that's right.
Develop those players, coach. Start them young, develop them, get them where they need to be.
No half measures, Vince.
Keep them on the roster. Right. Exactly.
No half batter. All batter.
No
batter. Yeah.
Want it all cooked.
Again, this is the clip I was talking about earlier, kind of referencing, like the short-term gratification that everybody's looking for. So, So what did you think about the actual sentiment behind the comments there from Mr. Henry?
I liked it. And I think as long as he's nice and upfront with these kids about his expectations and what it's going to be like, then great. Don't lure them in by false promises and false expectations and things like that. Just make sure you're upfront about it. And kids might think that, oh, well, he's talking about other guys. It's not going to be about me. You'll get that. I understand that. And this is a different world where you get to continuously recruit these guys, even when they're on your roster. But you still have to be true to the fundamentals of how you coach. And it sounds to me like his fundamental coaching style is to get them at the fundamentals, start them slow, get them where they need to be, and coach the full player. Because he also mentioned the mental aspect as well.
No, that's exactly right. And I mean, something that struck me, you've heard 3 comments, and I've got another one from Aaron Henry coming up here in a minute. Like, obviously, Mike Mickens is like that's the dude who does his bleeping job. I think I've said that, like that's
Right.
we know what Mike Mickens was doing. We know the fruits of the labor that Mike Mickens put in. Mike Mickens, much shorter on words, not nearly as verbose
Mhm.
as Aaron Henry. So Aaron Henry has definitely come in the door, with like when we would sit around and ask Mike Mickens questions, like it might take 20 questions to get 500 words out of Mike Mickens. But it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, okay, it doesn't really matter because this guy is the guy who does his job. Like we know that
Right.
he can do it. Like
Right.
Aaron Henry comes in and there's a lot more soundbite quality from Aaron Henry. We've got to kind of feel this out and see just exactly how he does do his job here. I would say, like he can definitely point at a guy like Devin Witherspoon and a couple other guys he had drafted at Illinois and say, player development was obviously at the top of the pie chart for Aaron Henry. Like he has shown the results before. We've just got to see him continue to do that here. But just based on initial reaction, I like what we saw and heard today from Aaron Henry.
Yeah, me too. I feel like he's cut from similar cloth as Mike Mickens. You know what I mean? He
Right.
was at a smaller school, found some diamonds in the rough, put him on a great trajectory to the NFL. And now he's at Notre Dame with all the resources that Notre Dame has, all the talent that Notre Dame has, and look out.
I think there's something to be said for that. The fact
Yeah.
that you do have to kind of go a little bit different route at some of those other
Sure.
stops as you're coming up, and you're able to, like Mickens can hang his hat on Sauce Gardner, and Aaron Henry can hang his hat on Devin Witherspoon. It's
Yeah.
nice you got a guy who comes in as an under-recruited guy out of high school like Witherspoon, can end up being drafted 5th overall, play for a Super Bowl champion, and be a difference maker for a Super Bowl champion.
Yep.
Like he was saying today that he felt like Witherspoon should have been the Super Bowl MVP. I think there's probably some people who might agree with that.
As I say, there's
I
an
know you're going to
argument to be
back the
made.
kicker still, but
I'm going to back the kicker, of course. I mean, they don't win that game without the kicker. Come on now.
we're going to take our one and only break this hour. When we come back, I've got one more comment from Aaron Henry, and we've got some other stuff that we're going to talk about, continue to talk about as well. When Rapid Fire continues, Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. We continue with Rapid Fire on Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. I'm Sean Stiers. The man I'm looking at in the video screen is Vince D'Addario. Having a good time today. Vince and Jesse will be here on tomorrow's show because I'll be doing a little Notre Dame Syracuse women's basketball tomorrow night.
I would just say it's a good thing you reminded me about tomorrow earlier today. I'll just leave it at that.
Does that mean that your list of rapid fire topics is zilch right now?
Well, even if I knew that I was going tomorrow, it would still be zilch because I usually do it the day of. You know,
that's true.
We're cutting edge. We do it the daily. You know,
yes.
We try to stay on it.
Yes.
Breaking news.
Try to stay as topical as possible.
100%.
At least that's the explanation that he gives publicly.
That's the line, buddy. That's yeah.
All right, I've got one more comment here from Aaron Henry. He says he has a secret weapon that's a key to his coaching success. I felt like this kind of popped at the end of his session with the media today.
I'm gonna give you guys a secret, okay? My secret weapon. All right, my secret weapon to developing football players is my wife. Okay? You laugh, but I'm serious because my wife's a clinical psychologist. We don't call her Miss Henry, call her Dr. Henry at home. Okay, and I say she's the secret because, you know, I've been able to talk to her about situations and scenarios, and she'll give me a plan and lay out a plan that's like, oh, I ain't think of that. I had a guys over to my house, and she'll sit down with them for 5 minutes or have a 2-minute conversation and pull me aside and say, hey, you need to make sure he has this, and that. That is like paramount. That is more important than them knowing the scheme. That is more important than them playing a certain technique. Because if you can appeal to their mind and their heart, you got them as a player.
All right, there you go. A little more table pounding from Aaron Henry there. But I'm just thinking, Vince, when I'm listening to that, I didn't know where he was going, obviously, when he first said, you know, his secret weapon is his wife. And it's like, okay, where's this going? Wouldn't it be nice for every coach to have a wife as, you know, a clinical psychologist for a wife at his disposal as you're trying to, you know, to get these guys to perform at their highest levels?
I mean, if I'm one of the guys coming over to coach's house, you know, that kind of thing, like I'm going to be nervous. I'm going to be analyzed the whole time I'm over there.
Right. It's like, by the way, here's my wife. Plop down. Let's have a chat.
Just my wife wants to talk to you for a second. Just come on over here for a moment, you know? No, I'm obviously kidding. I'm sure his wife is wonderful to talk to. But he's legit. Like that is a really, really good point. And that is I really like that actually, because it is about developing the whole player, as he had mentioned in the previous cut. And, you know, the mental side is huge, especially for a DB and a corner like that. That is very, very important. And if you can keep them on the straight and narrow mentally, you're going to be doing a lot of good things physically as well. So I get it, man. Like, that's not just a joke. Like, he's legitimately serious, and I love that.
I think so as well. And I think it's a very underrated aspect of all of it, is, you know, especially when it comes to sports, and like to have that as a resource that you can lean on. Like, I go back to when Paul Mainieri was the baseball coach at Notre Dame. Of course, Paul left Notre Dame. It's been 20 years now almost since Paul left, but he went to LSU, won his national championship down there. But Mainieri's dad, Doc, was also a Hall of Fame junior college baseball coach. His dad's degree was in psychology, and that was a big thing that Paul picked up from his dad, was just how you talk to players, how you know, maybe you get, you know, again, like going back to Aaron Henry here, the fact that he's got some under-recruited guys, some diamonds in the rough in the past, and how you can connect with them, and not just connect with them, but sort of make them, you know, make them see maybe something that they don't see in themselves, and build them up and give them the confidence that they can go out and actually execute that. And that like was always something when I was around Paul Mainieri, when he was at Notre Dame, that was something that he was, you know, where he just excelled, was, you know, like sort of jumping into these guys' minds and making them believe something that maybe they didn't always see but then they could go out and use that and execute at a very high level as a result. So I like to have that as a resource. Like when I was coaching baseball in high school, I had this kid who just had so much talent, like so much ability, but he was just a head case.
He's always in his head. Yeah.
Yeah. And like every little thing, like if it didn't go perfectly, I won't say it was a meltdown, but like he was just his own worst enemy all the time. And there were so many times where I was like, I wish that I had a psychology degree where I could just sit down and, actually have a way, to try to get inside that mind and steer it in different directions. So for a coach to be able to have that to go home to, and even just have the conversations, let alone have them sit down with the players, I think it's just a fantastic resource for a coach to have.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, I know that, a lot of teams have those kinds of personnel and stuff like that, but to have access to that specifically for your own needs and for your own room, like that's legit, man. And I'm sure that he's taken full advantage of that at his other stops, and he will continue to do so. So I love it.
We talked a lot of Notre Dame men's basketball in the first hour of the show. I'm going to give you this, though. Fill in the blank. Notre Dame men's basketball coach Micah Shrewsbury injuring an Achilles tendon during his team's 44-point home loss to Duke is blank.
A perfect ending to a perfect season. Like that, it's like add insult to injury, man. Like literally. And that stinks. Like I hate that for him. Like I didn't obviously see video of it happening. I'm sure he was just kind of hopping up and down and maybe just
someone said they thought he tripped over a player or something.
Oh, that's rough.
We were talking this morning with some of the other guys who were there, and like it doesn't appear that it was caught on camera by TV because it feels like they would have shown that and it would have been all over social media if someone had actually
good point
seen it. Yeah,
good point. It just like he's already struggling this season, obviously professionally, and he obviously can't have, whatever decision he makes seems to always be the wrong. Like we've all been there as coaches. Like when you're having a rough season, and it's like everything I decide goes wrong, and now he's injured and can't walk. Like, where does it end? I'm sure he's laying in bed thinking to himself, like how worse can this get?
Exactly.
I feel bad.
It's almost like a little too on the nose. It's it's like he didn't want to talk about it afterwards. I kind of think he should have. It would have helped maybe deflect from the fact that you just suffered the atrocity of the worst loss since William McKinley was president. Like, think about that, Mr. Historian Vince D'Addario. William McKinley, the last president to have served in the Civil War, was president the last time Notre Dame men's basketball lost a home game by as bad a margin as they suffered last night.
It was, listen, the last time they lost this bad, the year started with a 1 and an 8.
Yes.
Okay. So like, if that, like, we talk now, which obviously makes me feel old. When we talk about years that started with a 1-9, that was a long time ago. We're talking about a year that started with 1 and an 8. Like, that is ridiculous. Like, the school itself hadn't even celebrated 60 years on this planet, Right. So that's just a rough thing to be associated with. I'll just say that. That's tough, man. That's tough.
It absolutely is. So, I mean, obviously, hope that the Achilles isn't too severe, but he was in a walking boot last night. But it's just insult to injury.
It is.
At the end of the day. Army football coach Jeff Monken told The Athletic that he favors moving the Army-Navy game to Thanksgiving weekend. He says that he'd like to see the move because it could also allow the college football playoff to begin a week earlier, because one of the reasons the CFP starts a week after Army-Navy is to protect that game by giving it that day all to itself. Monken says it could still be protected during Thanksgiving weekend by just putting it in a standalone 4-hour block on TV. So, Vince, do you buy or sell this possibility that Jeff Monken, the Army head coach, has proposed?
This is a huge buy for me. It's a huge buy for me for numerous reasons. Number one, he understands the landscape of college football right now. This isn't your dad's college football. Everybody understands that. You can't play this game as late as you are right now and still be considered for the college football playoff. And let's be honest, Army and Navy the last few years have had teams that have at least been in the discussion of that group of 5 spot.
Right.
So why would you wait on your most important game, play it after the selection show has even taken place? Why give them that option to not include you because you haven't even completed your schedule? So that's number one. Number two, it appears as though the conference championship games are going away. Like that's what it appears. I'll believe it when I see it. But
still got to happen. It's still a few years in the future, but it's trending in that direction. It seems like
right. And this move allows for that to continue down that road, for those to go away, then to expand the playoffs, start them a week early. All of those things. This gets rid of that roadblock, which I think is great, and I like the fact that it came from Army themselves. Right now, we need to hear from Navy, but dude. It's rivalry weekend. Let's roll.
There was a counter story that I saw part of today. Apparently, Navy's not quite as all in on this.
Come on,
thing, but it's like I really don't understand why you would be opposed to it, because if you still, do you have to have the whole weekend to yourself? Do you have to have the whole day? It's Thanksgiving weekend. There's going to be more eyeballs, I think, if you did it Thanksgiving weekend than 2 weeks later. Basically, like Munkin is saying, just block off 4 hours, whether it is Thanksgiving night or the day, Black Friday or Saturday. Just block off 4 hours and say no one else can play in this window. We get this window. It's a standalone game. I think you'd have more people watching on that Thanksgiving holiday weekend than you would, in the second weekend of December. Or wherever it is, right now.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree with you. And I would even venture to say from a football coaching standpoint, do they really want to take 3 weeks off before that game? You know what I mean? Like, that's just a long time to take off with no game and everything. Like, put it on Thanksgiving weekend. I agree with you. I think they'll get more viewership. And I also believe that the game should be protected. I do believe that. And I'm all for that, whether it's on Sunday or Friday or whatever the case may be. I do think the game should be protected. What are we waiting for? Like that could happen in 26. Let's go.
I completely agree. And, like you said, then it helps facilitate the college football playoff. You get it in that much sooner. And I think everyone is in favor of that. Like not having that big gap. And he also said in this article, look, it's part of the reason that they moved to the American Conference was to give themselves a better path to the playoffs. So, you need to play this game earlier. It wasn't always played where it's played. That only started in 2009, so it's like it's going on 20 years, but it's not quite 20 years. So it's not like Army Navy always had this block to itself. They created that a few years back, I think, really kind of probably with the rise of both the conference championship games and the expansion into a college football playoff, they kind of shuffled things around. So it's not like this has always been played there. So it's not like you can't move it. And it just feels like Thanksgiving weekend, like Dallas Cowboys against blank, Thanksgiving Day tradition. Detroit Lions against blank, Thanksgiving Day tradition. There's no reason that Army Navy, I think it would be a great change and a great addition to Thanksgiving weekend tradition to have it played that weekend.
Absolutely. I would be more apt to be watching the game, to be honest with you, because it's like where it lands right now, it's got that weird weekend where there's really no college football, and a lot of times I get dragged out someplace, because there is no football going on, because I can distinctly remember certain years where I'm walking around like a craft bazaar or something, and I see a TV in the corner and there's the Army Navy game on, and I'm like, crap, I'd rather be doing that, but you kind of got to give in a little bit after a whole fall of watching football.
You're right. You're a lot closer to a lot closer to Christmas, I should say.
Yeah.
at that point. So there's a lot of other things that get you pulled in different directions when you get that deep. Yeah.
I'm just saying.
It's not quite started yet when it's Thanksgiving weekend.
Exactly. And everybody's off on Thanksgiving weekend. You know what I mean? Like whether you're out traveling or whatever, like the slate is clear.
Kick it off at noon on Black Friday.
Let's go.
That would be the perfect time.
That'd be awesome. Like what a way to
noon
just
on Black
up.
Friday, and then you get your NFL Black Friday game that they've started that tradition after work, after that. I think that'd be perfect.
Let's go.
All right. So yesterday we talked about this Joel Klatt list of his top 10 coaches in college football. Jesse and I talked about it. Klatt has Kurt Cignetti at number 1, Ryan Day at number 2, Kirby Smart at number 3, Dan Lanning 4, Marcus Freeman 5, Steve Sarkisian 6, Kyle Whittingham 7, Kalani Sitake, I think one of the bigger surprises, from BYU at number 8, Mario Cristobal at number 9, Lane Kiffin at number 10. I want to play this cut. Joel Klatt, this is why he says Kurt Cignetti deserves to be number 1. Now, he did say this is he ranked them based on what they've done over the past 2 or 3 years, basically, based on changes that have come about, transfer portal, NIL, and everything else. Here's why Joel Klatt says he put Kurt Cignetti number 1.
Head coach in college football is Kurt Cignetti. Guys, you can't put anybody else there. He has earned this spot. This spot and this ranking is no longer subjective. No. Not when you take the losingest program in the history of the sport, and in 2 years, you win the national championship with that team. It is not up for debate. He is number 1, and it has to be him. The losingest program. And here he is, 2 years in, and he's 27-2. And the only 2 losses, were on the road at Ohio State, who was the eventual national champion in that season, and on the road in the playoff to Notre Dame, who eventually played for the national championship. That's his only 2 losses.
Okay, so there is Joel Klatt's explanation for why he has Kurt Cignetti at number 1. Jesse was pretty vehemently against this, Vince. He says Kirby Smart should be number 1. Do you buy or sell Kurt Cignetti, number 1 college football in America right now?
Well, first, I'll just say this. I love it when a guy is doing a solo show and said, this isn't even up for debate.
Right.
Well, there's nobody to debate it with you.
Little straw man argument there, yeah.
Right. I always think that's funny. But anyway.
Don't debate me. Voiceless, faceless, whoever you are.
Exactly. Like, you can't debate this. No one can. My opinion's the only one that matters. I was surprised when I saw Kurt Cignetti at the top. Now, I will say Joel Klatt makes a very good argument for why he put him at the top. Taking IU, the losingest team in the country all time, taking them to win a national championship within 2 years. It's amazing. Like that is amazing. And that is coaching. Like, he did do that. Not, you can say transfer portal, you can say all these different things, but he did coach those kids up. He did go get those kids and put that team together. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is a remnant of itself from what it was 3 years ago, the roster, obviously. I mean, he completely cleared house and made a new team. But that does take coaching. Now, I can see where Jesse's coming from the Kirby Smart argument, because Kirby Smart has done it for a longer period of time. He has multiple national championships. He does have multiple national championships. Yeah. So that in itself is why I would put Kirby Smart above Kurt Cignetti. He's done it for longer. He's got more titles, right? Maybe we can revisit this in a couple of years. Maybe Kurt Cignetti has a few titles at that point. I feel like there is a bit of recency bias by putting Kurt Cignetti at the top of this list. You have to take more of a macro view, not a micro view, when you're doing this list.
But I think that the micro view on this is kind of what Klatt pointed out, and that is this is the losingest program in college football history.
Get it?
Where even modest success in year one, when Kurt Cignetti took them to the college football playoff and lost those 2 games he's talking about to the eventual national champion Ohio State on the road, and on the road to Notre Dame, who was the national runner-up. Like, those are his only 2 losses as head coach at Indiana.
You're right.
And it's the losingest program in college football history. That's pretty amazing.
It
when
is.
you sit back and look at that micro and the losingest program, because even just going 9-3 or 8-4 wouldn't have been a success in year 1.
Agreed.
But he only lost 1 game of the regular season and got him into the college football playoffs, and then followed that by saying, hold my beer. I'm going to drink my beer celebrating. We're going and winning a national championship. So I think at least for this 2-year window, I think you have to put Cignetti at the top of the list. Now, if you do want to broaden that out a little bit and say, because Ryan Day, love him or hate him, does have a longer track record of success and obviously has the same amount of national championships. And Kirby Smart has a longer track record of success and has multiple national championships. But the argument, I think, against Kirby Smart, especially if you're just looking much more recent, is, okay, he's still an elite program, but he's trended down a little bit, whereas Curt Cignetti completely resurrected a program that was down and out and in the mud and took him to a national championship in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, no, it depends on what the criteria would be for making this list. Personally, I would have Kirby, then I would have Kurt, then I would have Ryan Day. And I would also have Marcus Freeman 4, and I would have Dan Lanning 5. I'm pretty sick and tired at this point of everybody putting Dan Lanning ahead of Marcus Freeman. I don't see why that would be. Makes no sense to me.
Well, I think that, and we played a cut, that he had about Lanning yesterday, and he talked about, I think, like, he's got 8 losses as a head coach right now, and 6 of them are basically to teams that either won a national championship or played in the national championship game. Now, the argument against that, as Jesse pointed out, is, well, have you actually beaten anyone of substance? Because they were the number 1 seed 2 years ago and got boat raced by Ohio State, who Ohio State won the national championship, but you were supposed to beat them because you were undefeated and the number 1 seed. So there's that part of it. There's at least the case for Lanning that he's been to the playoffs the last 2 years, whereas Freeman went to the playoffs, went to the national championship game, just missed out on the playoff. I would actually have them 4A, 4B. I think that they are, like, if you're doing tiers, I think that Freeman and Lanning are on the same tier. And I think that, you can argue one way or another who might,
That's
be
fair.
A little bit ahead of the other guy.
I think Cignetti, Day, and Smart are tier 1, and I think Freeman and Lanning, Sarkisian, you could even put him in that conversation.
Yeah,
they would be tier 2, and then the rest of these guys would be tier 3. If we're doing it that way, I would agree with that completely. Yeah.
I think so. All right, we're going to have to wrap it up on that. We've got Wake Up the Echoes coming up next here. I know we had some problems with the YouTube. Hopefully it all gets fixed tomorrow. We'll see. Vince, enjoyed it as always. I'll talk to you later. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com.
See you.